Hey there, solar folk. I am the Solar Boy, and today we are working on a residential system. This is a Generac system that was installed by Pink Energy. If you know anything about Pink Energy, you know they went bankrupt a couple of years ago. For many reasons, they contest that their failure was due to Generac's failure with their rapid shutdown solutions on the roof. But in my experience, Pink Energy has also had a lot of installation issues or issues with properly training their employees to install things correctly. A lot of turnover, not a lot of consideration for training their people. But they did install a ton of Generac stuff, and Generac did have, you know, some issues with rapid shutdown things. So I'm excited to dig into this with you to see what we figure out. So let's go back to the battery here, because that's what this customer was having issues with. The inverter was saying there was an issue with the battery. Obviously this LED is orange right now. Seems maybe like a communication issue or something. So the customer turned off the battery, rightly so, and we're gonna see if we can get it to communicate again. So troubleshooting this, there is a couple of things to keep in mind, because the way Generac does solar is so strange from the way anybody else does it. And this is true with their solar and their batteries. Usually with solar, you have the voltage coming from the solar on the roof to signal to the inverters that you're good to turn on. And sometimes there's some communication between devices, but for Generac does the opposite. Generac's inverters, which this was originally a design by Pika Energy before Generac bought them, or Pika Energy, whatever you call it. The inverter itself is actually the one that sends the voltage to the device on the roof, as well as the battery, in order to tell those devices, okay, you can throw power around, we are good to go, have at it. So most people encountering a Generac system for the first time are gonna be confused by that. And it's one of the weirdest things in solar, to be entirely honest. Works for them, just wouldn't be how I design a system. But knowing that's half the battle. So probably the first thing I'm gonna do is take apart that battery, see if we see voltage there, because right here I can see that the battery disconnect for this inverter is still on. If we see voltage over there, that's great. We'll take a look at what other communication cables there are between this and that, and we should get to an answer pretty quickly, I'd think. In terms of the actual build quality of the system, this system actually looks pretty great. Person knew how to pipe bend, and although that pipe is a little bit crooked, totally solid for Pink Energy, and I'm sure the wiring is actually totally fine from the little bit of wiring that I've seen. I never remember exactly how these batteries come apart. Screws down here. And then you just lift it off, nice and easy. Put it somewhere. So things to look at when you're trying to troubleshoot one of these things, the voltage from the inverter and what will be the power output is right here. You see the RE plus, RE negative. That is not in reference to the major solar convention that happens in September of this year, but that is referring to REbus, which is the technology that Pika and then Generac use to send voltage back and forth between devices. This battery here is just for the smarts of the system. This doesn't actually put any power back into your house. It just makes sure that this stays alive while you have other issues. And then yeah, actually, now that I'm looking at this, so this is the one pipe coming down here. It's just the REbus wires. It's just a ground, positive and negative. So there's no actual communication aside from the communication between the batteries and the central processing unit of the battery itself. There's not actually communication going from this to the inverter. So we basically just need to maybe turn this back on. Now, before we try to turn this back on and see if we can get it communicating again, I am going to test for voltage. I'm seeing 375 volts coming from the inverter, which is a good thing. I think I'm just going to turn this back on, and we're going to go out to the inverter and play around with that, see what it says. So it currently says power cell battery disabled. We're just going to go in here and press enable and just see what that does. This truly could be a simple factor of turning it off and on again and seeing if that works. It's thinking. We do know the PV's working just fine. There's not an inherent issue with the REbus bus. And this does not appear to be doing anything. So I'm going to take a break and look up some stuff and just see what the reset mechanism is for these things connecting. The thing about REbus, it's one of those technologies that is supposed to be bulletproof and it's supposed to kind of work on its own. Like when you turn things on initially, it's supposed to find everything for you. It doesn't really give you an option to scan for things. It doesn't give you an option to kind of reset its scanning. I mean, that's not entirely true, but the ways that you would reset the scanning or try to re-add devices ends up being pretty arcane because it's supposed to just kind of work on its own. It's supposed to just do it itself. So when it doesn't do it itself, it takes a whole lot more finagling than anything else would. Like, it's much less user-friendly to kind of reset some of those settings. So basically, I'm gonna need to go read a manual for a bit and I'll get back to you. Now, as I was coming over here, beginning to look at the manual, I did hear the battery start to click. And usually when things click, when it is solar or batteries, that's a good thing. Getting contactors closed and stuff. And it is now blinking green red or green orange or whatever. And out at the inverter, it is saying again, connecting input. This might just be a vicious cycle that goes on and doesn't have a resolution to it. So back to the manual. I'm not seeing anything in the manual that's helping me out. So tech support time. Okay, hey, so that actually went super fast. I actually got routed to customer support rather than to technical support, but I also know the technical support line really wants you to have a dealer number, and I don't have a dealer number at the company I currently work for. I gotta rectify that. But he did say the issue with trying to initialize and then not being ready generally means that there's a fuse in here that's blown. So we're gonna turn this off, right? And then we're gonna pull these fuses and see what we find. All right, we first check that we don't have any amperage going through there, and then we, that's a harsh open. 40 amp fuses. Man, look at that. 40 amps a lot for a fuse holder this size. I'm installed. Yeah, this is really only rated for 32 amps, but I'm sure there's a good reason. That fuse is good. That fuse is not good. So that is absolutely our problem. So then next steps, we just got to go around, see if we can find this fuse anywhere in the area. If we can't, we got to order it from Generac or offline or something like that, and probably get a couple of extra fuses in case it happens again. So why would a fuse like that blow is going to be the first thing that all of you ask me in the comments. Basically, the deal with fuses is they will sometimes blow for not a very good reason at all. It will either be hot inside the cabinet or this fuse is weak for some reason. It just happens sometimes. There's nothing in the connection there that I think would be hot. I think we just got a fuse tripped for no good reason, and we just need to swap it and things will work out great for, this has been installed for 3 years. At least another 3 years, I would expect, for as long as the battery lives. I really don't see a reason why this should be tripping, but time will tell. But I gotta see if our local electrical supplies have this fuse. So stand by. As I suspected, yeah, there's not a lot of places around here that have a fuse that we need. That's fine. I'll grab some extra fuses so that if this happens again in the future, we will be more prepared, but definitely an oddball fuse. Usually I buy stuff like this off of All Fuses or something like that, which you can easily find this stuff online. It's just most normal electrical supplies don't have the 600 volt, 40 amp DC midget fuse. And it's just not a thing people carry. Until then, he'll definitely keep producing power, getting benefit from his solar. Just, if the power goes out, he won't be able to keep his critical loads running, which They'll probably be fine till Monday. Hey, guess what? I'm back. Got the fuses over the weekend, so we were able to get here right on Monday. It was here Thursday of last week. Not a bad turnaround for a couple of fuses. So let's go take this apart and see if this works. Pick it up, put it somewhere. Actually, before we do this, I did want to talk about, it is amazing how the weekend produces all sorts of things that you just didn't think about until, while you were on site. I was really harping on the fact that REbus really confuses people when they're doing troubleshooting. And I got tripped up in that myself, because if REbus wasn't such that the voltage was going from the inverter to the battery, and rather it was going from the battery to the inverter, I would have figured out this fuse thing way faster. Let me show you what I mean. So normally when I'm doing troubleshooting, I'm going to check to see if the battery is sending voltage, what voltage that looks like. And if the battery's not sending voltage, what's the first thing you're gonna look for? You're gonna look for the fuses, you're gonna look for a breaker that's tripped, you're gonna look to see if the battery's even on. Battery was on, we were getting voltage, but from the inverter, there's no way to check if there's voltage coming from the battery. You can test for battery voltage from the batteries up in here, but that's just not how a typical battery works. You really got to be careful with this stuff when you're dealing with Generac's things, because it's so easy to miss stuff. And that's why when we are not as familiar with how a system works, you default to calling technical support pretty early on in the process. You do some basic checks, you get a theory going, but you call tech support if you don't know 100% what you're doing. It's just the smart way of doing things. So now we can actually test for the battery voltage. Now that we have the fuses in, this is going to be backwards polarity, but nope, that's ohms. We'll do it proper polarity so y'all can actually see. So we got 127 volts on that side, and 127, 128 volts on that side. That's good. The fuses are good. We are going to go ahead and turn that on, and we'll come out here, get this activated. And that should pop on here in the next couple of minutes. And already we are charging that battery. Charge state's at 22%, but that will certainly go up here over the next couple hours. I really do love this diagram they have on the front of the inverter that lets you see actually at a site level. Like if you have more inverters than just this, it will take into account all the inverters that you have in the system that are registered, that how much power is going to your house, how much power is going to the grid, how much power is coming from your modules, how much power is coming from your grid, and what's coming to and from your battery. It's just a nice diagram and I like it. And that fan spins whenever the internal fan's spinning. But that's basically it, a nice simple fix. I think I'm actually going to be back here at some point to upgrade that battery in there so that they have a little bit more longevity. There's only 3 units in there, and I think you can put up to 6 of those 3 kW. It's more like a 2.86 something kW, kWh. It's a battery. It's not momentary energy. If you like this, like the video, share it with somebody you think that would enjoy it. Subscribe. I make videos in order to break down the process of troubleshooting and maintaining solar installations to see, how these systems age, good and bad installation practices, the things I run into with certain brands of inverters. It's all very interesting stuff, and I like sharing it with people. So until next time, stay shiny.